What's up, guys? It's Michael Key, your host of Real Conservative Talk, and today I think we got a pretty good show for you. But first, I want to start off by saying you can make a donation and support the podcast. That donation is going to be reinvested into the podcast. We are trying to get a video element of this podcast going, and so any of those contributions will be used to, again, reinvest, for production purposes, and just trying to give you guys the best quality content that we can provide. And I want to say this too, any donation over $50, I will run an ad for you. If you have a business or something that you want to advertise, I will run an ad for you at the beginning of each episode for 1 month. And there are details. You can email me and get more details about that as well. But that's any contribution over $50. And, so it could be somewhat of a benefit for you as well. Now, I've talked before about committees in Congress. My stance on these committees is that there's a lot of people, like the Finance Committee. There's actually two financial committees that do slightly different things, but it's the same concept, and actually this information goes for every committee there is. So, I've talked about the Finance Committee. The reason I talked about the Finance Committee is because I work in finance, so I have somewhat of an idea when it comes to finance. And there's a few people in the House that are a part of the Finance Committee that I have said don't have any financial experience. One of them being AOC, the other one being Maxine Waters, and Rashida Tlaib, I think it was the other one. Well, I was thinking about this and actually did some research and looked up the members. And I have a bunch of links here for you that are going to be in the description. There's a lot of links that I don't think people explore enough. And there's a lot of information. All this stuff is public when it comes to people that work in Congress, the House of Representatives, Senate, the President, all of them. It's all public information. And I'm going to provide links that you can go on to and look at. You can read all the bills that they're proposing. You can see where they're at in the process of being passed, who's supporting the bills, who's voting on the bills, the voting history. You can even look up each member of Congress, their history in the House and the Senate, bills that they've written, bills that they've co-sponsored, and these are all important. These are all important when you're researching a candidate that maybe you want to vote for, or, getting the true story on things, because the media is only going to talk about things that support their agenda. So it's up to you to go and do your own reading and get this information yourself and create your own opinion based around that. And I've been saying that. And hopefully on this podcast, I know it's called Real Conservative Talk, but I want to be non-biased as well, because one thing I don't like is I don't like politicians. It doesn't matter, Democrat or Republican. I tend to be more conservative. That's why I talk the way I do, why the podcast is geared towards conservative people, but it doesn't have to be. I'm just going to be straight up and give you my honest opinion and my viewpoints about things going on in the world right now, the way I see them. And it's going to be unfiltered. So in today's episode, I'm actually going to hit on Republicans a lot, along with Democrats. And I have found, and it's not information that wasn't known, but it's research that I did today and yesterday that really confirmed it. But I learned, my eyes were open to a lot more, and it was confirmed. And I want to share that with you guys. So going back to these committees. In these committees, the Finance Committee, I think, had, 21 members on the committee. Out of those 21 members, less than 10% of them had any experience in the financial industry, working in the financial industry. For the 22 members, it was, or it may have been 5 of the 22 members had any experience at all. So, you tell me how we have people in our Congress making decisions based on financial subjects like our stock market, like certain regulations or taxation or the budgets, right? There's another committee, it's the budget committee. There's an ethics committee, there's a House Rules Committee. But in the finance committee, less than 10% of the House members had any real-world experience in the private sector regarding finance. The others didn't even have any experience at all. And a finance degree in college doesn't count as real-world experience because it's two different things. I have an economics degree, and I also work in the financial industry. I'm securities licensed. I work with real, everyday people, manage money, everything. That's experience. Working as a banker is experience. Being an accountant is experience. Working for a campaign for a candidate that has been on a financial committee is not experience. Graduating from Harvard with a finance degree and then whatever else, that's not experience. Being a lawyer is not experience in the financial sector. I manage some lawyers' money. Why? Because they don't know what they're doing. So we have people that aren't experienced. And why is that? Well, I'm going to share that with you. So after diving in and doing some research, and maybe some of you knew this and maybe some of you didn't know this. I'm sure a lot of you knew about it, but you don't know the extent of it. How do you get on these committees? Well, there's a few different processes, but the main one is you pay. You pay a committee tax, basically. It doesn't matter what party you're in, if you're a Republican or Democrat. You have to pay. How do you pay? You do it through fundraising. Or you can pay out of your own pocket if you wanted to. So you pay to be a part of these committees. Now, these committees are ranked. You have an A committee, a B committee, and a C committee, basically on importance. An A committee is like the financial committees and stuff like that, the ones that everyone wants to be on. B is like, middle of the road committees. They have some important issues, some not important issues. And C committees are like the lesser important issues. If you want to be on an A committee, it costs a lot of money. How do you do that? Well, you raise money by fundraising for your party. There was a article written, and there's an article and I want to say study, but it's a PDF for report that I have attached a link to the description as well. And I'm going to be pulling a lot of this information off of it. And to start, it says, interested and knowledgeable members may even be deterred from serving on certain committees where they could best serve the institution and district because they know there will be a price to pay. For example, a representative who is a former accountant might have valuable first-hand experience to benefit the Ways and Means Committee. However, the expectation that they must raise $450,000 for the party could be enough of a disincentive that they would instead take a seat on a committee where her experience provides no value. So what you run into, basically, is that you have these people, these politicians, they all want to be a part of the group. You understand? A lot of these people are people that grew up, they just want to be a part of the popular crowd. They finagle their way into shit. They have the fear of missing out, right? They just want to be popular. They're power hungry, and they just like their name to be known. They like to, be at the party. They just want to be included. And what it turns into is them dialing for dollars. We don't vote in salesmen. Why the fuck would I vote for a candidate to go represent me when all they're going to be doing is sitting in a fucking cubicle and calling people to raise money for the Republican Party? That's not what I voted you in there for. So what they end up doing is, I want to be on the finance committee, like AOC is on the finance committee, and she was in her first year on the finance committee. No financial experience whatsoever. And you can obviously tell She has no financial experience because she's a fucking idiot when it comes to finance. But because she is good at raising money, which she is, she's damn good at marketing herself and raising money. She's good at getting people's attention. So she was able to stand on this finance committee. This isn't just to be on the committees. This is also, if you want to be higher up, so if you want to be like the leader of the committee, there's a formal name for it, but I'm just making it simple. If you want to be the head of that committee, then you got to raise the most money. Literally, your position in the House of Representatives, how popular you are amongst your party, how much power you have, and where your standing is based on how much money you bring in for the party. That's all that matters. That's all they care about is money, because then they can win and keep themselves in office. It takes time away from doing what they're actually supposed to be doing, and that is running the government. So, just reading on from this information that I pulled out of these articles, this is directly quoted. This leads to members of Congress working as telemarketers for political parties rather than as people's servants in the nation's capital, as they spend countless hours each week dialing for dollars and hitting the fundraising circuit. For committee or subcommittee chairs, this coincides with them gaining greater responsibilities and time commitments for their share or for their own legislative work. Former Republican Trey Riddell said the more money you give, the more powerful you become as a player within your party. Riddell wrote, when you donate big to the congressional committee, you land on a better committee. The former Republican also said, every year members are expected to raise and pay dues to the committee. And if you're reminded of it, excuse me, I'm live, and I'm just tripping up a little bit. So let me start that over. Every year, members are expected to raise and pay dues to the committee, and you're reminded of it often. Every time you walk into an NRCC meeting, a giant goddamn tally sheet is on prominent display that lists your name and how much you've given, or haven't given. It's a huge wall of shame. The big players, people in leadership positions and chairs of powerful committees, always dominate the board, raising millions for the NRCC. Furthermore, if you're in a leadership or the big head of a big committee, your dues are higher, much higher. So we are not getting the best out of people. What we should be doing is with the people that are elected in, it should almost be like we have the people that are, they vote in not by how much money someone has, but by the experience someone has, or someone who is well respected, or someone who can get something done for the party internally, because you understand, they're just once they're there, they're battling themselves to try and get these bills passed. They're influenced by outside money, but it shouldn't be that they're influenced by outside money, okay? Because they should be representing their local areas and what the interests of their local area is. If you're a Senate from the state of Florida, or a representative from a district in Florida, you're representing that district or that state. And you should have the best interests of the district or that state in mind, not what some fucking donor from another state is telling you to do, or what other people of the party is. You were voted in by people of the state or your district to represent them in Congress. I don't want you spending half of your time calling up people to donate money to you. You're fucking getting paid $175,000 a year. We are paying you with our tax money to go there and do a fucking job that you're only doing 50% of the time. And here's the other thing. They don't work like full-time hours. Like, they hardly even work. Hell, they're on recess half the time. So they're dialing for dollars, and then, the other half of the time they're in their meetings, but, if you combine the two, it's not even a full-time job, hardly. So basically, they're just kissing ass all the time. That's all they're doing. And money is everything. And it causes us to have these committees that are incompetent. What's funny is that they have recently tried to dim this down to make it to where money, it's not all about the money and the dues. Well, it's unethical, first of all. And it's ironic that to be a part of the ethics board or the ethics committee, you have to raise money and just to be a part and try and do stuff that's ethical, but you're doing something that's unethical to get there. So, people need to understand this. It's not a Democratic or Republican thing. It's just an all-around flaw in the system. I don't want to change how the United States is governed. We have a great setup. We have a great system. The problem is the people within the system and their goals, their reasons for being there. They're not there to just represent us. We are voting them in hope that they do represent us, but they are going there after we vote them in just to, boost their own agendas and boost their own popularity and their own personal reasons. That's not what the fuck we voted you for. So, that's what needs to be changed. It's not the structure of how policies are done. It's not the structure of our government that needs to be changed. It's the fucking people inside of it. This is what Trump was talking about when he said drain the swamp, because this shit's going on. This is why they didn't want him in office, because you have an outsider coming in. They don't want an outsider, period. They want someone that has served their time, someone like Biden, who's done 41 years in the thing, has raised all this fucking money for the Democratic Party, served as vice president. Well, it's his turn to be president. Right? And here's the thing. Let's say the Democrats lose the majority in the midterm elections. Let's say we'll just keep it in the House. I'm not worried about the Senate. Let's just say they lose the majority of the House. And Nancy Pelosi isn't the Speaker of the House. Let's say it's a Republican Speaker of the House now. Well, I guarantee you the new Speaker is whoever has raised the most money for the Republican Party. And it's documented. I have it up here, and I'll go over an example here in a second, but I want to give you some more specifics on this. So, congressional committees are assigned by ranking party leaders A, B, or C. This is what I said before. Based on their importance, the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee is a B. Appropriations is an A committee. The other committees are Energy and Commerce, Financial Services, Rules, and Ways and Means. All A committees generally require their members to serve on them exclusively due to the relative complexity and importance of the issues within their jurisdiction. Now think about this. It says all A committees generally require their members to serve on them exclusively. So some people in the House of Representatives will not just be on one committee, they'll be on two. I don't know if they can go more than two because it probably costs them too much fucking money for one, but it may be too much for them. But an A committee, so the A committees are Energy and Commerce, Financial Services, Rules, blah, 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 Ways and Means. To be on any of those, because of the complexity and importance of the issues. Now, if the issues were really that complex or really that fucking important, why don't all of them have to have experience in those industries? Why are we letting people be on them just because of how much money they raise? It's obviously not that fucking complex or important. Because we have incompetent people, we're letting incompetent people be on them just because they can make some phone calls and shake their ass like AOC can to get a little bit of money for the party. It's contradicting. So, we have some of the smartest people in the world that are serving in Congress, but the way they go about things is just idiotic. And people see this. Obviously, this isn't anything that you didn't know, but I'm sure people didn't realize to the extent, right? So serving as a committee chair, especially on one of the 5A committees, frequently ups the ante even further in terms of fundraising expectations. According to one source, members of Congress who chair a B committee are expected to raise $875,000 for the NRCC. That's the National Republican Congressional Committee. And chairing an A committee brings the expectation to raise $1.2 million for the NRCC during the 2017-2018 election cycle. So to be on an A committee, or to chair an A committee, you have to raise $1.2 million. That's basically the cost for one of these House members to chair an A committee. According to an internal party documents obtained by both, I'm not going to say the name, but and a writer of an article in BuzzFeed, during 2013-2014 election cycle, the top Democratic lawmakers on the 5A committees were asked to steer $1.5 million into the coffers of the DCCC, which I believe is the Democratic Caucus Congressional Committee. And the Democratic leadership in the House had even loftier fundraising goals. You'll like this one. Representative Nancy Pelosi of California and Steny Hoyer of Maryland, the number 1 and number 2 House Democrats, were expected to raise about $26 million and $3.3 million respectively for the DCCC. So think about that. To be a chair of a committee, an A committee, for the Democrats, you had to raise $1.5 million. To be the top Democrat in Nancy Pelosi, she had to raise $26 million. That is why Nancy Pelosi's husband has to revert to leveraging their insider trading brokerage account for the use of stock options, because they gotta fucking come up with the money. $26 million. So what? Think about this. You want power. You want to move up. You want to be popular. You want to stay in the House. You want to stay as elected. You want to keep getting reelected. How are you going to do that? You got to have money. Where do you get the money? Well, there's a lot of laws against who can contribute, how much they can contribute, where the contributions can come from, how they can be used. Right? That's why you have the Federal Election Committee. Well, that's why you can form super PACs or PACs. If a regular PAC, a political action committee, can contribute directly to a candidate. A super PAC can't. However, a regular PAC, there's limitations to how much can be donated. In a super PAC, it's unlimited amounts. So a super PAC is something like, let's say, I wanted the NRA. They support Donald Trump. And what they can do is they can raise money through their members into a super PAC that they created, but they can't have any communication with Donald Trump. They can't be doing anything directly with them, but they can run ads that will help Trump's campaign. Right? So it's separate, but it's in the interest of that candidate. So what they're doing is they have these PACs and they're raising money for their party. When they raise money, that money's going to, one example would be the recent recall in California with Gavin Newsom. The Democrats would have raised money in Washington, and that would have been directed to help his campaign to keep him in as the governor of California, because they don't want to lose that state to a Republican leadership. If they lose California, they lose a major foothold, and that would really be crushing blow to the Democrats. It's all about winning and losing and keeping a share of power. The problem is that they focus so hard on winning and losing and keeping power that they're not even using the power when they have it. Think about it. Right now, the Democrats have the House, they have a tie in the Senate, and they have a tiebreaker, and they have the executive branch with the president and the vice president, and the vice president serves as a tiebreaker for the Senate. But they're not getting anything done. Why? Because they're focusing on, half the time, they're focusing on just remaining there. They're not doing their job. None of them are. Republicans or Democrats. This goes both ways. I'm not singling anyone out. It just so happens that right now, we are all Democrat as far as Congress goes, in the majorities. If it was Republicans, I'd be talking about them. Because this research goes both ways. So don't think I'm singling anyone out. I'm just showing you how the shit works. And I'm just showing you that when you have like the GameStop incident and the CEO of Robinhood has to go and testify in front of the House, and you have people like Maxine Waters asking questions and she has no fucking clue what she's doing. She's just there in that position because she was able to make some phone calls to some rich people and get some money donated to the party. That's a problem because the questions that she's asking are incompetent. They're not good questions. She doesn't understand what's going on. Neither does AOC. And they're basing their policy off of these meetings and off of the stuff they hear and they don't know anything. How it should be is they sit down and, again, if you have to have so much experience to serve on this committee. Maybe we should even test them. Like, I had to get tested. I took, I have a 65, a 7, 63, the SIE, my insurance license, like 6 or 7 tests to get my licenses and be able to do what I do. To serve in, to manage people's money, be a financial advisor, and even give any kind of advice on finance. I had to take 7 tests. I had to pay annual fees. I had to do continuing education. Yet, AOC or whatever Republican is allowed to go and make fucking laws and policy about my job that they know nothing about. Yeah, Michael, we voted them in. We voted them in to represent us in Congress. Yes, I didn't vote them in to serve on these committees. Okay? All in all, the difference is that the committee is who goes and like focuses on these issues, and they come back to the House as a whole and they vote. So, the policies are formed and derived from these committees and their hearings and their research and all that stuff, and then they're going to come back to the House and present it. I want people that are experienced to go and get all that stuff together, so when they go and present it to the House, it's accurate, it's knowledgeable, and then the House can understand it and then vote on a reasonable solution. Sometimes things don't need to be changed. The problem is that if nothing's happening, these people get into office by making continuous promises that something's going to change because there's always something wrong, right? Nothing's ever perfect. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. But they always make promises. They make promises, oh, we're going to, tax the rich. We're going to whatever. Well, maybe taxes didn't need to be changed. Maybe just the management of the tax money needed to be changed. But they can't just do that. They can't just go in there and do nothing, even though most of the time they do. They have to make it look like they're doing something, right? Like, it's got to go back and forth. They have to do something. But I think us as regular people that aren't in an elected official, sometimes we need to realize that sometimes nothing is better than something. Sometimes if nothing's being changed, that's okay. If it's something serious, I get it, but there's a lot that they go in there and they're like, oh, well, there was one, Sheila Jackson Lee, if you go look up, government tracker Congress.org, I think it is. I'm going to post a link. You can go on. You can actually look at how long they've served in office, how many bills they've put into or tried to get passed, basically that they presented, that they've written up, how many bills they've co-sponsored, blah, blah, blah. And you can actually read the text of the bills. This is where you don't need to get your information from like Fox News or CNN. You need to go on the computer to congress.gov and read the actual text of the legislation. Now, they do make it complicated, and it is a lot. Like the $3.5 trillion stupid tax is like 2,000 pages, but the government tracker.org, I think, will actually break it all down for you if you did want to do that. But that's where you need to go. You need to go directly to the source. You don't need to go to a middleman that's presenting it to you because they have different agendas. CNN has a different agenda than Fox News does. So you need to go and read about it yourself and form your own opinion and base your voting decisions off of that. But I think it was like Sheila Jackson Lee's like come up with like 800 and something bills. Like she's like number one. She's always trying to do legislation. Like why? Why do we need so many changes? First of all, the ones she puts in are fucking ridiculously stupid. Like some crazy stuff she tries to present and get passed that will never ever get passed. She's an extremist to say the least. But you know, and I'm gonna again this article or this study here. It's a PDF format, right? It is. I think it's about 15 pages long, maybe a little longer than that, but it's extremely informative. But it really just dives into the logistics behind how someone like an AOC, who's a new representative, can be so outspoken and have so much power. And it's all about money. It shows you how someone like Nancy Pelosi, who has never worked a day in her life, can have so much power. A lot of these people have no experience in the real world or the private sector. None. Some of them do. On this finance committee, there's about 5. 5 out of 22. So just think about that when you see any of these policies that are presented by Republicans or Democrats. First of all, the chances of it getting passed are slim to none. And 2, it's all driven by money. If you're a donor to the finance committee, hold on, let me pull it up here. So you have Maxine Waters, and this is in 2017. And Maxine Waters and Representative Jeb Hensarling, who's a Republican, he's from Texas, they're the chairs of the Financial Services Committee. The Republican, Jeb Hensarling, raised $10.1 million for his campaign committee from January 2009 to December 2016. Of that, $6.3 million was transferred from his campaign committee to the National Republican Congressional Committee. That's 3 of every $5 that he raised for his own campaign went to the Republican Party. For Maxine Waters, she raised $3.7 million from 2009 to 2016. Of that, $707,000 went towards the Democratic Party, which is 1 out of every $5 she raised for her campaign. Get this. 1 out of every $2 for Hensarling's campaign war chest came from finance, insurance, and real estate sector donors. And for Maxine Waters, it was 1 out of every $4 came from finance, insurance and real estate sector donors. So people who are in the industry related to the committee that they're serving on are donating to them. And the more money they get from these people, the more power they have on that committee. Obviously, they're going to be influenced by the people that are donating money, because people like Maxine Waters and Hensarling want the power, right? So they're going to be, they're going to do whatever it takes, including taking orders from the people that are putting them in power. Your votes get them in the House, it gets their foot in the door, and then money after they're elected is what gets them all the way in the door. So, they're influenced by these big businesses and all that stuff, but this actually shows it, and it's both sides. It's true. So, again, this isn't a Republican thing, it's not a Democrat thing, it's a, we as a country need to better understand this thing. You're not going to get an uncorrupt politician. It's not going to happen, especially with career politicians. That's why we need people that have served in the private sector. I think one way around this is to not allow people to run for office that have never had a real job in their life. And a real job means after college, you worked for a company. And I'm sorry, a law firm doesn't count because there's too many of that. Internships at law firms don't count. People are going to say, oh, well, yeah, it does. No, it doesn't. Because there's half of them are like that and it's fucking everything up. That's where a lot of these people come from. Sorry to you lawyers, you guys are great. We need you. I'm not saying that attorneys and lawyers can't run for office. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that having an internship at some big law firm and then going and running for office or working for a campaign, that ain't going to do it, because that's what a lot of these people have done. So when I say working in the private sector, I mean anything from working at McDonald's or owning a business, or working as a financial advisor, or being a doctor, or anything like that. Working construction, a blue collar job, a white collar job, anything other than being politically related. If you are running for office right when you get out of college, fuck no. Come on. And when you do get in there, if you're going to be on this committee, then you have to have experience. And if you don't have experience and you want to be on that committee, you don't have to pay, but you should have to be tested. You should have to study and learn it. And you should have to pass certain requirements so that we as a country know that you're competent enough to serve on it. I don't see a problem with that. I would pay a little more in taxes for that. That seems like something worth paying for. Not taxing me so that you can, for all the other stupid shit you want to tax me for. It's frustrating. It really is frustrating. And I'm going to continue to dive into this stuff because there's a lot more to it. But I wanted to, in this episode, just start it off with that. There's a lot more research to be had on this stuff. Again, I'm going to provide the links. The website, that governmenttracker.org, I think it is a very informational site. Congress.gov is the best one. You're going to get the links to the all the information that I read on here. So you can go see that. I'm not lying about this. Like this stuff's actually true. You know why independents don't win? Because they don't do all this stuff. They're not raising money for the parties. They're doing it all themselves. You would think more independents would win, right? They're kind of middle of the road. They can appeal to maybe more people that are kind of right in the middle. Nope. Why? Because they're not getting, they're not conforming to this this cult that we have going on in Congress. You understand? Republicans and Democrats, they all hang out together. All these politicians. How many Republicans criticized Trump when Trump was running for office? It wasn't until Trump won that he started getting these people on his side. Why? Because the Republicans realized, oh shit, a lot of our party voted for this guy and support this guy and love this guy. And if we want to stay in power, we got to stand behind this guy. Otherwise, we're gonna, we're done. Lindsey Graham is the best example of that. I'm not gonna hit Ted Cruz on it too much because Ted Cruz was running for president against Trump, or any of those guys. But like Lindsey Graham or all those guys, like they used to criticize Trump all the time before he became Trump president. While he was running, right? Like everyone did. But as soon as he won, they all, now they're all about it because they realize that all their party supports them. And if they don't, they're out. Think about it. I saw something today, Marco Rubio, who I don't mind. I like Marco Rubio. He said something about, I think he was kidding, but it's basically having a bill that allows you to sue people for their woke agenda, basically let's say they wanted to kick me off of Podbeam because the way I talk about things and I'm unfiltered and I say what I want, those wokies want to cancel my ass. Then I can go sue them. But let's be honest, if no one was making a big deal, if the Republicans or conservative people weren't making a big deal about me talking the way I make, or me talking the way I do, and people wanting to cancel me, if the left was saying, oh, fuck that guy on Real Conservative Talk, cancel that show, and the Republicans didn't care, then Marco Rubio wouldn't say anything about it. They only support issues if they see that their party and the people that voted him in support it. But they don't have any original ideas or original thoughts. Right? They're molding their opinions, and their opinions will continue to change as time goes on, as the opinions of the consensus of the party changes as it goes on. As the left gets more left, the politicians that were on the left that may be in the middle of the road, like Joe Biden, who used to be talking about, right now, supposedly the right is racist, right? Well, he said a lot of racist shit when he was first in office back in the day. Now he's like saying things completely opposite of what he said. Like they all do. And this is, again, both sides, right? The left, as the left population gets more left, the people that have already been in office and elected get more left too, even though they never believed in that stuff before. They're only doing it because they have popular opinion. Like I said in the beginning of the podcast, these are the FOMO people. These are the people that, only do things because it's the popular thing to do. It's not because it's the right thing to do, or it's the original thing to do, or, this is how, they're not individualistic people. They don't have original thoughts. They don't have individual thinking with each other. That's why you don't see a lot of, rarely do you see when a, Republican or Democrat goes against their own party with bills. And when it does happen, like with Manchin and the girl from Arizona right now, they get almost hung over it. Like, you may not see them win, and really the only reason I think that they are doing it, like Manchin, because he's from West Virginia. I don't even know how he got elected in West Virginia in the first place. And the girl from Arizona is from Arizona, which is, I think, tends to be more right-wing. So, they're always going to do what people tell them to do. They're fucking puppets. All right, I'm not one of those people that's like, they're just completely influenced by these big corporations and all that. They are, but I think it's more of they just want to be liked. And it's not about being liked. It is, because you want to get votes, but let your actions do the talking. Let your actions back it up. If people went and checked the voting history on a lot of these bills, I bet you they would vote differently when they saw that the people that are voting in the Congress actually really aren't doing what they elected them to do. You know, why would you? Like, we have a republic. We are not a democracy, we're a republic. We vote people into office to go and represent us on a higher level and make decisions for us. Okay? And the people that started our government, our founding fathers, when you look at the government they started with the Electoral College and all that stuff, some of the smartest people in the history of the world. It is incredible how they came up with this system. And it's a system that even back in the 1700s, when things were a lot different than they are now, still works to this day. And even with all the corruption in Washington, it still keeps the country going. I saw something, one of the bills on that government jacket thing, can't remember, I think it may have been Sheila Jackson Lee that came up with it, but, excuse me, it was co-signed by 8 Democrats, or co-sponsored, by 8 Democrats, and it was to abolish the Electoral College. If that's not the stupidest shit, if you are for abolishing the Electoral College, you don't understand how our government works and why the Electoral College is there. The Electoral College is there so that the minority, the people in the Midwest, the farmers, the people in the South, that they're represented properly. Because if we didn't have the Electoral College and we just did a straight up Democratic vote like this bill also wants to do, then you would literally have New York City, LA, Chicago, and the next largest city voting in president. The needs of the people in LA, in New York, in Chicago are not the same as the needs of the people that are everywhere else. And you got to understand, the people that are everywhere else, like the people in the Midwest, the people in the South, are the ones that feed the people in LA, in New York, and in these cities. So you have to have representation for the whole country. That is why the Electoral College is so great. Like, literally, the creation of the Electoral College by our founding fathers is one of the, in my opinion, one of the greatest political moves ever. It was extremely well thought out. And having representation, the House of Representatives and checks and balances and the Senate and all that stuff, the 3 branches, all that stuff was extremely well thought out. Yeah, they pulled ideas from other past empires, but, it's not the problem with the structure, it's the problem with the people in it. And that's how it is when you go and you look at Rome, when you go and you look at ancient Greece or the Venice Empire, Venetians, all of them. They fall down the same path. It's not the structure of the government, but the people that are running it. And thank God today, the difference is that the people that are underneath them, the people they're representing, have access to all the information. So nothing can really be hidden as much as it was back then. So we can actually see through a lot of this bullshit that they're doing. With technology now and computers and the internet. Back then, in ancient Rome and all this stuff, they didn't have that, so they didn't know. These people that they were voting in to represent them were just fucking them. Now they're fucking us, but at least we can see that they're fucking us and we can do something about it. The other thing, too, is we have a Second Amendment right that helps us defend it. That if they go overboard, well, now they're going to have problems. Like, go look at how our Constitution is set up. The first 10 amendments there are incredible. And I'm going to even say the first, 20, because then you include the voting rights for black people and everything like that, because that's all important. That needs to be in it as well. So those amendments right there, I mean, it's created the greatest country in the history of the world. So we don't need to change that or restructure that. We just need to fire some of the people that are currently running it. Because this hasn't always been going on. I believe this is like the 1980s is when this started. Paying to be on these committees and all that stuff. Before that, it wasn't that much of a thing. So it hasn't always been like this. So just be mindful. Go do your research. Go read. Just be aware. Now, I'm going to close on that. Oh, actually, I got one more thing I want to talk about. Read an article yesterday. This is kind of a funny one, but I guess it's true. It's CSNBC. Came out with this, and apparently, cows farting is a major impact to climate change. And feeding them seaweed will help reduce emissions. I laughed at this, and the first thing I thought was, so basically they're telling us that climate change is a load of shit. I mean, in a literal sense. So, if we burn to death in 10 years, it's because we've let the cows keep farting. Even though cows have been farting for, probably a million years now. It's an issue now, and it's causing climate change. I guess they don't take it into consideration that when a cow takes a shit in a field, it's adding organic matter to the field and helping the grass grow, helping the trees grow, that help the air quality, and it's a cycle of life. So we're going to make our vegetarian cows it's probably going to be vegan seaweed. They don't want the non-vegan seaweed. And whatever makes them feel better about themselves. I cannot believe that CSNBC wrote an article about climate change due to cows farting. But wanted to leave that with you guys too. I thought you'd think that's funny. I thought it was funny. Maybe it's true. If it is, well, let's feed them that fucking vegan seaweed. Maybe the gluten-free stuff too, because that tends to mess with your stomach, I think, too. So, be back on tomorrow. Again, if you want to donate, go ahead and donate. You'll get an advertisement out of it if you do over $50. 1 month pre-episode advertisement. So, literally, the people that are going to listen to the podcast, the first thing they will hear is that advertisement. So, if you're interested in that, it's a $50 contribution to the podcast, and that's just going to be reinvested into the podcast anyways. And I want to be open and transparent about it too. If you're donating money for the purpose of me to reinvest in the podcast, I'm going to, keep that documentation and show that it's being reinvested into the podcast. I feel like that is the right thing to do. If I'm going to ask for money for the podcast, then I better be using it for the podcast. So, I'm not going to do the fucking politician shit with it. But have a good night, and I'll be back on tomorrow. Thank you.